Bonjour mesdames et messieurs, in this episode I give you some tips and tricks on compositing. Bonjour mesdames et messieurs, my name is Serge Ramelli. I'm a French photographer living in the beautiful, the amazing, the incroyable city of Paris. And I make 2 tutorials per week. Click here if you want to get the raw files for this episode and all the past episodes. And we are talking hundreds of raw files from all over the world. You will subscribe to my newsletter and you will get tons of newsletters from me with special discounts, bundles, free tutorials. Or click here if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In last episode, I showed you how to fake a long exposure look using your camera without a tripod. Sometimes you're on a boat and you cannot make long exposure, and this is a really cool trick in Photoshop. This week, I'm going to give you some good tips and tricks on composition. I'm going to show you this photo of the Senat, that's the final result, and show you all the photos which I consider were wrong and were not a good enough composition and why I picked this one. And also give you a lot of things that have worked for me over the years. So let's go to Paris, let's go to the Jardin du Luxembourg, and let me show you how we do this. Bonjour mesdames et messieurs, just a little trick before we start this tutorial. You may not know this, but I'm a completely self-taught photographer. I never went to school to study photography, and I've been making a good living with this job for over 8 years now. And I've learned everything from the web. And there's one resource I want to talk to you about, which I think is a great resource for photographer. It's called This Week in Photo by my friend Frederick Von Johnson. It's the guy's got amazing shows on photography of all the new stuff coming out, tutorials, workshops. It's a very, very interesting resource for photographer. And he just made it even better because he made a whole new website. He's got new shows coming out. There's a lot of tricks and tips on gears and on techniques of photography, and a lot of information on business of photography, how to get your photos out there. If you join Twip, he has an annual subscription of $99. You can use the coupon PhotoSurge. I asked him to give a discount for all the people that follows my podcast. And you can get access to a lot of more tutorials, marketing courses for photographers, meetups and seminars, workshops and events, all kind of good stuff. It's one of the biggest resources on photography out there that I really like. And I just wanted to announce his new website and encourage you to become a Twip member. It's going to pay itself 10 times because you will learn so much. I mean, knowledge about marketing, knowledge about photography, knowledge about post-processing is so key today in our industry that I think training, and that's why I do training, but I also follow other people's training, is so vital. Okay, so talking about training, let's start our training today. I want to talk to you today about something which I think is one of the key elements in photography, and that is composition. The thing is, I get a lot of email every day of people sending me photos that they took, and most of the time they're really nice. But there is one thing which I see people having a lot of harder time with other thing, and that is composition. What I mean by that is usually people send me amazing sunsets, very nice colors, pretty well processed, sometimes a bit too much, sometimes a bit not. But one of the things that I see is missing most of the time, if I had to, survey and write down what is the one thing that I see is lacking most of the time, is composition. Composition is really hard, and I'm struggling with this every day. And is the one thing, what we call the eyes of the photographer. Now, I have a few things that have worked for me, and there's this one rule that I call and I talk about, which is the message. Your photo is supposed to communicate a message. The problem is that in the real world, there are so many things going on at any given time of the day that even if you've got the right light and the right subject, sometimes you can have a poor photo. And I've studied a lot of masters in photography, Ansel Adams, Jean-Michel Bertz, many great photographers, and composition is really what makes their photos stand out. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a master of composition. I want to give you an example. There is a garden in Paris called the Jardin du Luxembourg. It's an amazing garden. It's right in the center of Paris. Absolutely beautiful. Tons of people at all time there. And in the middle of the garden, there is what we call the Senat. It's actually where the laws are made, is that nice building that you see here. It's a beautiful, beautiful building. And you know, with flowers everywhere. It's just an amazing garden. So I wanted to have a great shot of the Senat in a garden of Luxembourg. So this is my first shot. I was trying to compose the photo with, you know, flowers in the foreground and, you know, the garden in the foreground. And it was just like, it was just too busy. It is too distracting. And that's, I mean, I can retouch this photo and make a very nice slide, but it's still too much things going on. So then I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to move closer to the flower here so that I only have the flower in the foreground and I've got the Senat in the background. Even so, that photo is completely out of focus. It's just for compositing purposes. I'm showing you that. Now it's already a bit better because you've got like a leading line there that's getting you to the photo. You know, there is the flower in the foreground. But you know, there's one problem with flowers, and actually these ones are pretty cool about that. Flowers, grass, trees, plants, for me, they are what I call high frequency textures, meaning there's a lot of stuff going on, it's very distracting for the eyes. And sometimes it can be even what I call aggressive for the eyes. Not talking about the flowers, but a lot of trees, a lot of wild grass in the foreground can be a bit too much. So then I tried, you know, a couple of more composition, you know, with having the flowers, like one layer of flower, grass. I mean, it's a very well kept garden, you know. But yeah, I was not satisfied. So I moved a bit. I said, okay, I'm going to take out just a little bit of flowers and just a bit of grass and the garden and the Senat. And that was still not good enough. I said, you know what? I'm going to take the flowers out. So I moved a bit further. So no flowers, just the Senat. But it still, look, there was still lots of people there. I mean, this photo is totally out of focus. Actually, I didn't watch, but my autofocus was off. Then I had an idea because in front of the Senat, there is some water. So then I put an ND filter on. The problem is that I did not have my remote on me. So I could not use the B mode. I could only do 30 seconds. But anyway, I found some settings for 30 seconds. So let me press I. So 30 seconds at f7.1 ISO 100 with an ND 1000 filter. Now we are starting to talk. Already now it's less distracting because we've got, you know, just the Senat and the water. So the message I'm trying to put out there is the Senat. Now that's already better, but now we have that thing in the middle. We have this thing in the middle, you know, not good enough. So then I moved a little bit on the side and I got this composition. Now that was really cool, and that's the one I really like the most because you got just a Senat, and on the top of it, because I use an ND filter, the water got a bit silky and became a mirror. So it put even more attention on the message I'm trying to get across, which is the beautiful Senat. All right, so I'm going to use this photo. So to start off, I'm going to open up the shadows, bring down the highlights. Okay, now that photo, I always eyeball it somehow. You know, I just make it in a way that it kind of looks cool. Then I'm going to open up my whites. And bring down my blacks. Now that's already changing a lot of things. Now, when you do that formula, I want to talk to you about this. When you do that formula of plus 100, minus 100, and then the whites and the blacks, what happens is you give a little HDR look to your photo because you're stretching so much a dynamic range that it just sort of looks a bit of HDR. And if you want to go back to a bit natural, you just add overall a minus clarity, like minus 15%. And so it gives back a more natural result. Okay, now let's take care of the sky here. So I'm going to make a graded filter, and I'm going to lower a little bit the sky. Now, see, when you make the graded filter, what happens is the roof of the garden of the Senat is now very dark. So I don't like that. There's a couple of ways you can improve that. And one of the ways is to open the shadows in the same time then you do this. Check this out. No shadows open, shadows open. It's a bit subtle, but it helps. And then you just move it up. I don't want to do that. Yeah. And there is a new option coming out that I'll show you in another tutorial that right now only works in Bridge. That's amazing, where you can use the ND filter like this and then you can brush it back where you don't want it. I'll do a separate show on that. Right now I'm going to do it, it's not yet in Lightroom. For some reason Adobe put it in Camera Raw. I just saw that, but they didn't put it in Lightroom. So now you have to do it the old way, which is close this and then take a brush and then bring back some exposure in the Senat here, and maybe here. I don't want to make this too dark. Okay, and while I'm at it, I'm trying to complexify a little bit the light of the Senat, because, you know, this is what I do in life. I complexify the light. You know, people ask me, what do you do in life? I complexify the light. That's what I do. Okay, now, one thing which is cool, and remember how I took the clarity out of everything in the photo? One thing that is cool is to put it back with a brush just where you want it. I want the clarity, so I'm going to put clarity just back in the building of the Senate, right here. So we have a very crisp Senate with a very fuzzy water, you know, and now that's getting interesting. Okay, now white balance. Let's check it out. Daylight. Daylight is warm. I like daylight on this one. Cloudy is going to be warmer, and shade is going to be even warmer. No, I'm going to go for daylight, and maybe just add a little bit of magenta. I can't help it. I think I need to stop magenta, but anyway. Okay, so that's kind of cool. So that's the look I was going for. I have a little problem here, and that's a sensor dusk. Now the problem with that sensor dusk is that it's close to that chimney. And because it is close to that chimney, if I go here and I try to erase it, it's not going to work. Look, because of the chimney, it's just not going to do a good job. Okay, and so this is when, unfortunately, I have to use Photoshop for this one particular spot. So I'll show this to you in a second, but for now I want to crop this photo. But before I crop it, I want to use the unaballed profile correction to take out. Look at this. Look how much vignetting I took out. Unbelievable. You know, the vignetting was coming from the ND filter. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to remove chromatic aberration in case there's any. And then I'm going to crop it. I want to make it more panoramic. Again, talking about composition in the message. I think usually we say we never put things in the center, you know, but unless it's very graphical like it is here, it's kind of working, you know, to have a, sort of like, yeah, maybe a little bit less sky here, you know, very panoramic. I think it's going to make a more powerful composition. And, you know, I could crop this and this there, but I still want the Senate to breathe and have some space, you know. And we have another sensor dust here. Let's see if this one is going to go away with that tool. Okay. That should do it. That should do it. Okay, now, so I'm going to jump over to Photoshop and show you how you can do this when you have a spot or something you want to talk that is so close to something. It's very tricky sometimes. Let me think, what else would I do in Photoshop, in Lightroom? Maybe I want to try lowering the exposure of the bottom of here. Let's see if that would make something interesting or not. You just have to give it a try. Oh, clarity, no, I don't want that. Let's see, before, after. Yeah, maybe it could be interesting. Actually, yeah, I could lower the clarity even more there. That could be interesting. To make the water even more fuzzy. Okay, and what I want to do, I want to add back a little bit of vignetting, because the post-crop vignetting does not look like the vignetting that you have, just a little bit, so we have even more emphasis on the Senate. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So before I jump into Photoshop, and every time I do this, before I jump into Photoshop, I do the noise reduction before. So let's see here. Noise reduction, I think I'm going to go for 10. There's hardly any noise in that photo. So then I'm going to put a sharpening at 90. I have this rule, 100 minus 10. And then I'm going to do my masking, because I only want the sharpening to, I don't want the sharpening to be just on the building. So there we have it. So maybe it's a bit too much sharpening, like 80. It looks a bit too much to me. I try to overdo it so you can see it on the video. But anyways, now we've got a nice crisp photo of the Senate, and I think it communicates that. Now I'm going to show you how to get rid of this in Photoshop. It's kind of tricky. It's such a stupid spot. I should have cleaned my sensor before, and I didn't do it. So I'm going to right click, edit in Adobe Photoshop CC 2014. Okay, so here I am in Photoshop. I always duplicate the layer to not work on the original layer. I'm going to press Z for zoom. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to do the technique of the protection. What is the technique of the protection? Well, it's pretty simple. what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pen tool and I'm going to click here. I'm going to protect the chimney. So I'm going to click here and I'm just going to follow with the pen tool by clicking. And because I want to correct the problem, but I don't want to do on the chimney. Now, when you use the pen tool, it's good to be, you see I'm at 200%. I'm really zoomed in. That's pretty accurate if you do that, okay? I'm trying to protect the chimney so that it doesn't get, well, something like that. So now I'm going to make that selection a bit big. So now I have a selection. I don't care so much about this antenna. I don't think it's going to be very key to that photo. People are not going to say, oh, you took out the antenna. Okay, so now I have a line here. I can right click on it and click make selection, and I'm going to make a feather radius of 0.5 pixel. So it's going to be pretty sharp, okay? And now the magic. Now I'm going to take the stem tool, use the Alt and Control key on my keyboard to make it bigger. I'm going to click Alt here so that I take some of that sky here, and I'm going to paste it over there. I'm going to take out the antenna while I'm at it, and check it out, nothing's happening on the chimney. And I'm the Command D, and it's taken, I've protected the chimney. I have a little problem here, but that's fine. In that case, what you can do is use the patch tool. Here, there was something a bit left, and I'm just taking this, I'm going to drag it over. It's going to take it out. And now there is no more, and that spot was taken out, and we protected completely the chimney. Okay, so before, after, we just took out that spot and the antenna at the same time. And voila, this is the photo of the Senat in the Jardin de Luxembourg, and some tips and tricks on composition. All right, guys, I hope you like this. If you like this episode, please share it to the world with Google+, Facebook, Twitter, whatever social networks you're working on. Thank you so much, and I will see you in another episode. Mesdames et messieurs, au revoir.